I guess a lot of the trauma is also having that bad credit and not being able to do what you want to do in life.
It's like looked at as a negative. And I said to Brother Umar, overcoming the knockdown and coming back and knocking the dude out is that mindset that you need to be having rather than not trying to face that.
All right, I go to work every day 9 to 5, right? I make $80,000 a year, but I got a 550 credit score, right? Because you thinking this system runs off of money. Legal tender, and it doesn't. They looking at you how you're credited. They can't get into your bank account, but they can get their last four of their social. And see that you ain't paid Macy's or DoorDash for the last 3 months.
Like, getting out of poverty is everyone's goal, right? But it is one of the hardest things to do, because as soon as you do it, you got to do it again. And then you got to do it again. And then you have to do it again.
Financial trauma is literally that big, beautiful elephant being tied to a twig because they think it's a tree.
Welcome back to Receipts Only. I'm your host, Q Dotson. We're going to continue the conversation about financial trauma. Dwayne, let's start with you. What is financial trauma to you?
Financial trauma is well, first of all, you gotta go through building up your credit. You know what I mean? That's not trauma. That's like how can I say, achieving some goals, right? When you're building your credit up, right? So now the trauma part comes in. The trauma part comes in when you say, all right, I want this BMW, right? Now you've been wanting this vehicle for a little while, right? You done built your credit score up. You done went to Umar. Umar helped you with your credit score. He went and helped you get that credit together. And then all of a sudden you go to this dealership, not knowing really what you're doing, right? Say, just for example, Umar built me up to a 680, 690. And I go into this dealership and I, fill out the application, and they send all my credit to 25 different lenders, right? But they give me finance for this vehicle, right? So I get this vehicle. I'm so excited about getting the vehicle that I don't even look at the terms, right? So now when they do sit me down and tell me how much this is going to cost me, I'm still looking at my finances saying I can afford this, right? Not knowing that some other thing could come up, right? So when you look at the trauma part is now when you got a $600 or $700 car payment, right? Because your credit wasn't 700 or up, right? And they ran your credit all over the place. Now you're struggling with that payment, right? On top of all the things that you want to, take care of, that you have to take care of in life. So the trauma part comes in is when you can't afford that payment, right? So now you got to refinance, you got to do different things. And now what happens when you can't? Because it's always going to be a bill that's more important than that car payment. Your lights, your mortgage, et cetera, et cetera. So now guess what? They come in and take that car. They repossess that car, right? So that's the trauma side to it. From my point of view, looking at, people that have been through it, right? I've never had a, car repossessed, thank goodness, but I know people who have. And they would call me like, man, what can I do? Say, next thing you know, they're hiding their vehicles, you know what I mean? They're doing different things. So that would traumatize someone, right?
Yeah, that's the truth.
That would definitely traumatize someone. So, you have a vehicle, even if you had it for 5 or 6 months, now you're used to getting in the car, going where you want to go, anytime you want to go, right? Now you ain't paid that car payment in 3 months, 2 months.
And now you got a car on your credit report. You can't get another one. Right. Repossession on there.
Right.
So I guess a lot of the trauma is also having that bad credit and not being able to do what you want to do in life.
Definitely
That's traumatic. That's what
that is. You know what I mean? And then on top of that, you got to really, really, really think about this. They make you're literally doing this. All right. Taking priorities as far as payments. right? But if you would have been educated enough to know, I should have went to my credit union or my financing institution and got the check, right? First, and then went to these people, right? Because if you already have a relationship with a bank, 9 times out of 10, your interest rate is not going to be near as high as when they go shop you around, you know? So that's what I would think, that's just an example of financial trauma.
I know you recently had an encounter with a client.
Yeah.
He was telling me you think they suffer from some financial trauma. Can you speak on that?
That was financial fear.
Financial fear.
Yeah, that's financial fear because at this point, this client is 800 and plus, right? So, and all they're looking at, that's when people that go to work every day, right? They go to work every day. They look at a budget. Right? So when they're looking at their budget, they're not looking at, cause when you actually go into, with this client anyway, when you actually go into it, we want to get this person a business, right? To be able to expand everything, right? So when this client came back, I actually got Umar on the phone. When this client came back, because the relationship came through my brother here. So I would like him. I wanted him to be on the phone. That way he can understand what was going on. And he did once he got on the phone, right? So this person's fear was they didn't think if everything went downhill, what would they be able to do next? Right. And that's what happens to a lot of us. Like, my brother on the last, event, on the last, segment, he was saying about taking $100,000 and blowing it, like just fucking up $100,000, right? To get that over that fear, because you can always start over. That's what we don't understand, right? That's why we have brother Umar here, right? Bad credit into good money, So, if you go fuck up $100,000 and you have this sitting on your credit report and that's the only way you can move forward, you need to come and see us because we can assist you. You know what I mean? But getting back to that client, it doesn't, because we run into them all the time. So it's not like we are trying to, push them into anything, right? Because I want them to be comfortable, but you can only give them so much information, right? This is a lesson you have to learn on your own. I can't explain to you my situation, right? And then say, this is what I went through and expect you to understand that, right? You have to go through it yourself, right? So if you're not willing to go through it yourself, you'll never understand how this whole system works, right? Because they want you to mess up. They don't want you to mess up, but you can mess up and redo everything over. You know what I mean? And as you do that, now guess what? That fear goes away. You don't have that fear anymore because you're like, you know what? I did this already on my last round. I'm not going to do this again. I understand how to move forward with this. But if you've never been through it, right? The first thing you're going to think is, how am I going to pay for this? Right? But as who we are as entrepreneurs, as we know we betting on ourselves. I'm not going to go give 8 hours to another man when I know I can put 8 hours in myself and rock and roll and take care of myself and my financial alerts. You know what I mean? I'm not going to do that. And just throwing that out there, W-2 employees are the worst employees in the world. That's their work. You get taxed more than anybody in this whole world. This setup is not meant for you to become wealthy as a W-2 employee,
Brother Umar, can you add on to that?
I think financial trauma is just the elephant tied to the twig. If I don't ever watch like the circus, and when those elephants aren't performing, they tie them up to literally a twig from a tree, and they don't move because when the elephant was a kid, they had him tied to a tree and he couldn't pull. So in his mind, anything that looks like a tree is too big for him to pull. So you'll have a 2,000 pound animal that doesn't want to pull something the size of an extension cord because he still sees it as a tree. So I say that's what a lot of these clients are dealing with. This is why I said in our last episode, I think everybody should blow $100,000 so they can get over that tree. Just pull, right? But if you go into every situation thinking about, that one traumatic experience you had financially even challenged. So I'll give you an example. I didn't realize this till an adult. I had a conversation with my mother. One time our lights were out and she got candles and we had a pizza party. And we were more excited about the fact that we were having a pizza party with candles. We didn't realize as kids that the lights were out. So when I brought it up as an adult and she told me, oh, the lights were out, I was like, damn. So I'm not saying every situation, and I believe maybe that shaped the way I look at things now. But the beautiful thing about rock bottom is you did it already. So if you had a 400 credit score, I don't really see what your fear is when you hit 800 because you did it already. You didn't die.
It's up from here.
It's up from here. Every day a human being's alive is a second chance. So even financially, on every level, every moment we live is a second chance. So when we were talking to this client and his reservation was, I don't want to go backwards. Well, if you're just sitting on the 800 credit score, you're going backwards every single minute. You just sit on this thing. So, me and Dwayne were like, okay, well, we're throwing businesses out there. What about trying this one? Because there was no plan. So this is why I always say, from a standpoint of financial trauma, having an 800 credit score with no plan is just as bad as a 500 credit score because you'll just be sitting still. Right. So in my opinion, financial trauma is literally that big, beautiful elephant being tied to a twig because they think it's a tree.
That's very profound.
Right.
Esther, what's it say?
Yeah, I mean, I look at it very similar to, Umar and Dwayne. I had my own fair share of financial trauma, so I can definitely tell us asking so many different levels, whenever we would go with it. But for me, I look at it as a little deeper. I'm a big fan of this guy called Bob Proctor. He's to me, the best speaker in terms of what he's talking about and how he goes into it, that I've ever heard. And one of the things that he really talks about is really reshaping the image you have of yourself when you look at yourself and really trying to delete the files that you have in your mind that were negative, that were not going the right way. Because a lot of times when that happens, it can cause you to self-doubt. It can cause you to just put yourself in the wrong mindset. And so for me, I think a lot of the financial trauma is, hey, I tried this, or I went through so many financial hurdles. Because let's face it, getting out of poverty is everyone's goal, right? But it is one of the hardest things to do because as soon as you do it, you got to do it again. Then you got to do it again. And then you have to do it again for years, and it causes so many men and women to commit suicide. It causes us to have a lot of self-doubt, make bad relationship choices, make bad emotional choices, get in, violence and legal issues that you really shouldn't be in solely just because the financial burden of trying to overcome poverty, and then even when you overcome it, now you have a whole new slew of issues, when it comes to now other people who are dealing with their trauma are coming after you because you overcame yours, So now you got to overcome that and then maintain it when you get there. So, when I look at it, I just think that overcoming it in terms of any of the financial trauma, it does require a lot of guidance. When you're looking at from a credit perspective, there's a lot of people that we talk to every day that fought so hard to get that 700 score. They fought hard to, build their credit up for years, and so when they finally get there, there's sometimes the fear of, well, anything could take me back because they don't believe that they can come back again. Or even if they do believe they can, they don't want to go through the process. And one thing that I always tell people is just that when it comes to the credit and finance, all that stuff, you have to always have a mindset that you're trying to get all the way out of your situation, not just to do the bare minimum. So getting to 700 is just so you can now open up more doors, not just so you can say, look at my score, my credit's not bad. And I could just so you can have that emotional gratification or satisfaction. And if you have a mindset that you were this lower level person all this time,
then when you finally get in position to actually do something, you actually weren't working on the steps needed to push yourself past the issue. What I mean by it is, if I was doubting myself and not, all these hurdles I ran into when I felt this way and, finally got my score up, but I wasn't actually doing the planning of what I'm going to do when I get to that next tier. Instead of, if I wasn't putting that time into that, then when you finally get your opportunity, you're going to blow it. It's just like a relationships. And we say, oh, there's no good woman out here. There's no good guys out here. And you keep going through the motions of every relationship. Then you finally get to the right person and you're not prepared because you still have the same mindset of the other folks. So that trauma, whether it's financial or emotional, if you don't handle it and look at it from a much deeper perspective and really look at it from an internal perspective of saying, I've got to reshape my image of who I believe I am, regardless of my circumstance.
Right.
That's the biggest challenge.
Right.
That's dope. And that begins internally before anyone ever actually see the results of that mindset and that change that you make.
Yeah. And my favorite to go LeBron. I have to throw it in there. Okay.
Big
folks. Yeah, I know.
We'll see.
For some people. But yes, when it comes down to it, I look at it as when you become a champion in the NBA or any other level of sport or, whatever accomplishment you have, people will crown you a champion when you've got your rings. But in reality, it's when you made the mental adjustments and then apply that work that you knew you needed to do to get to that peak level, and then put a team together and, help them do the same. To me, those are the real moments where you become a champion because you're actually doing the steps versus somebody who may have just gotten there by luck. You actually have the right mentality. You have the right habits. And this is all connected to whether it's for sports, business, credit, all of your finances, funding, whatever. It's having the right mentality. So the things that even we'll go through in podcasts is really about changing habits as well.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, you take your talents to Miami, huh?
Exactly. To the beach. And change them. Hey, once he got over there, he changed some habits.
So you took it. We that's a whole nother topic, man.
You touched on something that was definitely thought provoking. As you say, you have to do it again and do it again and do it again, meaning escape that mindset, or escape that the poverty, and yeah, I guess new level, new devils, so to speak. It's not like you get that 800 and it instantly fixes and changes everything instantly. You have to continue to strive and continue to apply yourself. And that within itself is part of the trauma because you got to continue to push through. So as far as Lou, what are some of the things that you see amongst your community and how that financial trauma affects the family aspect and affects the community as a whole?
Well, what I would say, I'll start off by my definition of financial trauma, because it's trauma always comes from experience. And Ashton just expounded on, making the example of sports. And yesterday, Brother Umar and I was having a conversation downstairs, and we were talking about a contender boxer, and his name is Abdullah Mason. And he faced adversity, and the financial trauma that the way I correlated it was, in order to overcome that trauma, you have to kind of gather yourself from a negative experience you've been through. You know what I'm saying? And most people can't do that. And the way we were looking at this boxing highlights, and I'm like, in boxing, most fighters, they don't want to be knocked down. It's like looked at as a negative. And I said to Brother Umar, overcoming the knockdown and coming back and knocking the dude out is that mindset that you need to be having, rather than not trying to face that. And even the conversation I had with True, where he was like, man, I'd rather just go through it
and get it over with.
And that's a dope metaphor, bro. Or just, sorry to interrupt you, but that's a dope metaphor.
Yeah, so basically in terms of financial trauma, you know, a lot of us have been through it, you know, repossessions, charge-offs, collections, late payments, and that ability to not have the ability to get forward or move forward or go get a car or go get a lease or go get a house. That's where the trauma comes from. And obviously, you know, no one really wants to be put in that position. However, going through that and overcoming it and making the better decisions, which is like stems from every single day you get up and being like, all right, what am I going to do different? Because sometimes that trauma comes from making the worst decisions, and the day you might not feel the effects of that decision you just made, but you know it's coming. You know what I'm saying? You know that trauma is going to come. You know the bad day will come. How you going to be overcoming that bad day the minute that it does get here?
No one is it?
Right? Nah, nobody. El trauma financiero se manifiesta a base de decisiones que se hacen en el diario vivir. Nadie quiere pasar un trauma financiero, pero el trauma financiero lo que hace es que nos deja saber a nosotros dónde tenemos que trabajar y dónde tenemos que aplicarnos con disciplina. Which I'm saying, like, discipline will get you over this trauma. You know what I'm saying? Haciendo decisiones en el diario vivir para mejorar and making better decisions every single day.
Well, foot in front of the other.
Right.
Focus forward.
Focus forward.
Yeah. All right. So that trauma could definitely affect us personally, all of us, right? How do you guys feel about how that financial trauma affects our relationships when it comes to your lady, comes to your kids, comes to your relationship with your community? Because it's not just you, especially being the leader of your family, being the head of your household, being a leader in the community. Brother Umar, we're going to start with you. How do you feel like financial trauma affects the family dynamic? How does it affect the relationships of people going through those traumas?
I don't think that there's anything that can make a man feel like less of a man than when he has to come to his spouse or his kids and tell them, hey, there's a possibility that these lights will be off tomorrow because daddy couldn't handle his business. I don't think there's anything that can make a man feel like less of a man. I think in all honesty, a lot of those financial, a lot of the issues that finances cause in a relationship, and I'm put myself on Front Street, could be fixed if we communicated them. But as a man, sometimes you just don't want to say it. Right. So you wait until the day before the lights off, and you didn't have an attitude with her for 29 days because you didn't want to say it. And she might make a comment, not knowing the situation, she might make a comment to trigger something in you, and just because you find less of a man, you to take it all out on her. So
What is that? Why would you want to say it?
Because you don't want, the last thing any man wants to do that's a man is look small in front of his woman. That's the last thing he wants on the planet. I'd rather get shot in my private park than not look like a man in front of that woman. It's the last thing I want. Right? And so I say that to say that because of that, and now again, this goes back to financial trauma. You know, you may have had a situation before you met the woman you with a woman that may have been before you, and the way she reacted to a real life situation traumatized you again. So now in your mind, when I bring this to her, she's going to react the same way. So let me try to figure this out before I bring it to her. And then maybe God wanted us to figure this out together, but I didn't catch that lesson. So I'm like, no, I'm going to figure this out on my own. And then I wait till the 29th day to bring it to her. And now you done stressed her out because you done dumped all of this on her on top of your attitude for the last 29 days. So I don't think that there's anything that has more of an effect on spousal relationships and on parental relationships in our time than finances. I don't think, because if we go back to our grandparents, a lot of them, my granddad didn't have running water until he was like 18. So they don't even know that space. He's using an outhouse. So he don't know if the lights are on or off. Or he doesn't know. But now in our time, that's not a reality, right? Everything revolves around whether or not somebody else's judgment of you being financially responsible is sufficient or not. So, you first meet a woman, they'll barely ask you if you're a good man. It's just like, how much money do you make?
Yeah.
That's like an opening question. So your entire worth is tied to, in reality, your entire worth is tied to what Experian is saying. She ain't gonna ask you questions, run your credit report.
Okay, then I'm here today.
Yeah, you know what I mean?
The last 4 years old.
Yeah, we last for that
Softball.
You know what I mean? So I don't think that there's anything in our time that has more of an effect on relationships than finances.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that.
Yeah. And I even know women, sorry to cut you off, Dwayne. I want to make one last point. I know women in my family who have told me that they will put up with a man cheating if he's paying their bills.
Paying the bills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Security. Yeah. Well, first of all, you got to understand that relationships is a business, right? So when you go pick that partner, that's what you better look for. You know what I mean? So, and nowadays,
The most important business part.
yeah, that's
First and
it.
foremost.
Yeah, you gotta, and so it's no different than, like I was talking about earlier about that car. If you go pick you get in a relationship with someone that's not a good business person, right? Just themselves, right? And when I say that, I mean, they don't have good credit. They don't, their credit is tanked. And then you don't know the receipts on it. You don't know the bureau bullies, right? You don't even know, a lot of us don't even know this exists. You know what I mean? They don't even know that you can go back and get all this taken care of. So that right there, if you don't have that knowledge or understanding, you already done. You're already done. So when you get into a relationship with someone, if someone is not on the up and up or like when me and my wife met, when we met, it was different, right?
How so?
I can tell you this. I didn't tell her everything, right? She asked me some questions and I didn't tell her everything. Now she knows everything.
Full disclosure.
Full disclosure to the max, right? So, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because now you have to vet. If you're going into a relationship with someone, it's a business deal, right? A marriage is a business, period. Like if you don't look at it like that, I'm sorry. You need to, because 10 years from now, 5 years from now, if you want to flourish in life, you got to have good credit. Your credit has to be on the up and up. And you got to understand your life is a business, and that's how you got to run it. If you don't run it as a business, like Ashton was, talking about poverty, that's where you'll stay. You know what I mean? If you don't look at your life as a business, and the reason I say that, your social security, go get a business. What do they give you? A 9-digit number. That's an EIN. It's no different. Your social security number is a business.
9-digit number.
It's a 9-digit number. When you open up a business, what do they give you? An EIN, which is what? Just another social.
Yeah, it's an entity.
You know what I mean? And all that is you just got a puppet in somebody's back.
Right.
And you controlling it,
Strong man.
So yeah, but it's very, very important to know who you're getting with when you really, really, really are serious. When you get, I don't know. It's hard to even say nowadays because, I ain't been outside in years. So it's hard to, say what age, because everybody's mentality is different and their raising is different. Right. So like with Umar, I ain't going to disclose his age, but at his age, I was not near where he is in life as far as mentally and emotionally and financially.
Right.
You know what I mean? So a lot of these kids out here now, they see things on the social media, and that's how they perceive how that person's living. And, we all know 9 times out of 10, it's just not right.
And want it instantly, popcorn culture, so to speak. Right. How willing to put the work in, like what we're discussing here.
Right.
You put the work in. What I'm hearing is you put the work in to get to that point in the relationship with your wife. where you can have full disclosure.
Oh yeah, I mean,
We can be successful together.
right. At the end of the day, Umar touched on this. It's communication. Like if you can't sit down and someone be honest with you about where they're at, run.
Or their credit score.
That's that. Yeah, where they're at in life. Like, all right, I go to work every day 9 to 5. Right, I make $80,000 a year, but I got a 550 credit score. Right, because you thinking this system runs off money, legal tender, and it doesn't. They looking at you how your credit looks.
Right.
You know what I mean? They don't have, they can't get into your bank account, but they can get that last four of that social
Bar.
and see that you ain't paid Macy's or DoorDash for the last 3 months. You know what I mean? So they can get into that. But as far as your banking, you can have money in the bank and, you know, you thinking everything's sweet. And in all reality, it isn't. But again, communication, if you really going to get into a relationship with someone, you have to have that communication. If you don't have communication, you don't have anything.
Piggybacking off of what you just said, I think it speaks directly to what we're talking about. So now we're talking about finances and relationships and how that attributes to the financial traumas. Because if you go into a relationship, you choose your person that has all these financial traumas and they only look at life from one dimension. They only know to go to work 9 to 5. They're not looking at, I can be, you know, a lender and not a borrower. That's about put, or I can, you know, create legacy. Like, let's create some wealth.
Yeah.
You know, it's extremely difficult in your relationship to move as you need to move and be with someone who's going to be supportive of the decisions and the sacrifices that you have to make.
Yeah.
So I think that ties in directly. I know recently you had an experience, Ashton. You want to speak on that?
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's a lot to go through. So I'll try to explain it the best way possible. But, you know, for me, what I kind of experienced, I was with somebody I went through the whole marriage process. And in that situation, before we even got to that, you know, I felt like it was somebody solid. It was going to be a good situation with them. And, you know, I was already kind of building business, but I had to like rebuild some things at the time, but things have started to progress. And in that window, it seemed to be a situation where, you know, that person had different intentions and they really wanted to, because they weren't from America, they wanted to have basically a citizenship here, you know, and I didn't realize the level of importance that was to them. And when we go through the relationship and I started realizing there was a lot of things that was like, before we even got to the worst of the scenario, there's a lot of emotional trauma that was going back and forth in terms of like the time that goes into, you know, dealing with arguments and disagreements and instead of working on what we need to get done. And a lot of times as men, you know, we can get caught up in that because you can deal with a toxic person that wants the attention, wants this, wants that out of you. And you always want to, you know, try to be the best, you know, boyfriend, husband, or whatever that you are to that person. But it can distract you, you know, and even in those debates and unnecessary arguments, and now you're mad and now you got to handle things. And so for me, what I've experienced was I was dealing with a person. And again, you know, in relationships, there's always one person could be wrong about this, or I could be wrong about that. But what I feel like was the real issue is just that intention, you know, the overall, you know, picture of the relationship was about getting into America.
Right.
But it looked like it was something else.
So not to interrupt you because I want you to keep going, but it was basically a business trip
Right.
deal with our side. So you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I'm looking at the relationship. You looking at the business.
Right. All right. So you're saying her complete intention was to get a citizenship. She wasn't there for the actual, everything that comes with the actual relationship. What was your intentions?
I was trying to build a relationship and grow. You know what I mean? I had made the decision before I met her the next person, I'm going all the way, you know? And sometimes that can be the wrong choice. Or I was.
So she just happened to be the person that came before you.
Right.
Wait,
right after
while
that.
you was ready.
And you already had a mentality of what you was going to do and what you
Exactly.
look forward to.
So I was not going to be giving up easily. I was going to try to work through a lot of things that I shouldn't, tolerate things I shouldn't. And, you know, and it all connects back to the finances, because for even like you talked about earlier, for the man to be in rough situations, and I'm, you know, trying to build and grow the business and all those different things while dealing with the relationship that, you know, is not ideal. You know what I mean? And for me, there was a lot of me trying to, because I was making more money, I put myself in a scenario where I was picking somebody that was not necessarily able to handle that type person. Right? You know what I mean? And what I mean by that is not in terms of like cooking or cleaning, things like that. I'm specifically talking about how you respect each other.
Right.
You know, because the biggest issue that really goes back to the relationships on both sides, my respect for her, her respect for me. If we lose the respect, it starts the war. Because think about it, every person you've got a problem with is because you feel disrespected. 9 times out of 10, whether they cheated on you, stole something from you, you know, hurt you in some physical way, it's still a version of disrespect. And so, and it again, it comes back to, if you have that type of people or those type of people in your life that are disrespecting you, causing you all these unnecessary issues, it's going to distract you from the goal, because you got to get to the top level. So for me, when going through that, you know, this person was so dedicated to doing things their way. Even when I said, I don't want to deal with you anymore, you know, they went back to their home country, and I stayed in, you know, here in the States, and they decided to come back and try to force me to take care of them and do all these things. And because I didn't want to do that, they put me through a lot of stuff. They made up a whole story because there's a loophole, if somebody doesn't want to continue to go through immigration with you,
Right.
that you can just claim abuse, and then and when you claim abuse, they can still continue immigration, even though regardless if it's true or not, to be honest with you. So it's just one of those things that happened. And in that, it literally set me up where they had me in jail, you know what I mean? And I'm sitting here like, how did I end up in a scenario when I didn't do these things? I didn't I didn't do all this stuff. And again, this is something that really just, it bothered me a lot, you know, and going through that whole experience, I'm in an orange jumpsuit, and it wasn't even that long of time. This is talking about like a matter of days, like 1, 2, 3 days, you know, the hole in the hairless. But it's when this stuff happens, and I realized this was all about having this on file so you can then use it to get into today.
Yeah.
And then while I'm in there, you know, the person takes all the money out of my bank accounts, you know, max out all credit cards,
Stole the bit.
tried to take the business, tried to shut everything down in the business, made up fake reviews about the business just to make the business, you know, harder.
Trying to destroy
Like,
you.
this is every single thing that can go wrong. And that's solely because I stopped and I didn't want to go through immigration, because I didn't want to deal with the attitude problems. You know what I mean? Because I'm not good with, like, if we can deal with each other and be cool. We don't got to disrespect. You know what I mean? And so again, all this comes back to the relationship and the finances, because when you're in these situations, it will affect your money. And it's coming, like, it's the very next thing is going to get hit. It pops, you know, and just the legal process going through all that. And it was just a lot. And one of the things that I've learned is, you know, getting through those moments was just a very real issue, and overcoming it from a mental perspective, because while this is happening, I still got a bunch of clients, and I got to explain this story
Right.
to these clients,
Right.
because they're like, well, why are you not available? Why can't you do this? I'm in a scenario where I went from living one lifestyle to basically losing everything in a matter of days.
Wow.
Not even because of
Oh, you done.
right, exactly. Some chopping crazy scenario. It's just all this nonsense. And then when it happens, it's like, it's hard to explain. And from a legal perspective, it's a lot more, to go through than a lot of times people even convey. And then to even go through the process afterwards of just trying to prove yourself and show, who you are as a person. And thank God I've been blessed with a great relationship now with, my lady now. And it's been total opposite. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I got to see the difference of having a relationship where you respect each other versus having a relationship where it's okay to disrespect. And I talked to my current girl now. I told her, look, she was, in the, like, after I had ended this other relationship, she saw what I was going through. Cause all this happened when I was done with the relationship.
Right.
This wasn't even like we're still together trying to work this out. I was already done. She just wanted to continue. And my current girl, I told her, look, we're not having a disrespectful relationship. I'm not disrespecting you. You're not disrespecting me.
Yeah.
Period. That's not going to be the case. If we can just do that right, even when you're dead wrong or I'm dead wrong, not taking it there, not going to that next level, it just opened up so many doors because now I'm able to say, we've been together like a little over 2 years, but there's none of that. There's no, mass arguments. There's no blow ups. There's just, we're mad or she's mad, either I'll go sit down somewhere. She goes to sit down, but it's not even getting to that point. And I say all this because it's very much related to what we deal with, because as men or women, for that matter, if you want to be successful when it comes to business or your career, job wise, who you choose can ruin your life.
Yes.
And it can cost you in ways, because again, I went from a situation where I was doing well to basically being homeless with all these clients and all this stuff going on. And now I'm the one that, knows all this stuff about finance and credit and all this. And I'm the one in the situation.
Financial pressure.
And then I can't even explain it to everybody because I'm in the middle of the situation. So then people just can say, oh, you're this or that or whatever, pass judgment.
Exactly.
And you can't even always defend yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So finances, speaking to the finances in a relationship, looking at it from the perspective where not only is the person not supporting you, but essentially she the op, trying to control everything that you have built,
Right.
stealing at the bank account,
Right.
everything. And on top of that, wanting to destroy your reputation.
Exactly.
That's definitely out there.
Yeah.
So choosing the right partner, piggybacking off of what Dwayne was saying, dictates everything. Your relationship is the most important business partner.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's something that, you make the wrong choice, it can cost you. And I got to see the effects of like, oh, I thought I've got the right person and I didn't. And a lot of that was because of not establishing certain boundaries, on both sides, on my side or her side, you know what I mean, on how to operate with each other. And there were certain things that, she was cool with saying to men or doing in a relationship that I just wouldn't do. I'm not like, even outside of just the dating relationship, just in terms of regular conversation, I'm just going.
And like you tolerated more than what you should.
Yeah,
because you went into it with a mindset already of I'm gonna make it work. And she went into it looking for someone to just finance what she wanted to do and get her citizenship. And she never really actually cared or gave a damn about you or what you guys on.
So you kind of married a debt collector.
Right, exactly. Because I got her 700 score, paid for her to go to college, like cash. You know what I mean? Like this was a whole mess. So
Crazy. I did the same thing.
yeah, right. Yeah, it's one of those things. So when you go through that, and it's a massive, again, learning lesson for me, because I should have been more prepared, all those things. But as you go up the ladder and you see it happening, even with celebrities, how many, particularly black men in the last 2 years have been taken down, whether it's their fault or the woman's fault, but just getting caught up in issues with women. You know what I mean?
All right.
And this is the number one attack that I think that the producers have to really pay attention to. Like the people, the women that you decide to be around, or even if you're with men, whichever, you got to make the right choice, because you can't just be out here, oh, I just want to be with everybody. Because it's such a promoted agenda to say, oh, I'm going to sleep with this one, sleep with that one. But you don't know the risk you take just dealing with another person, because you don't know how they move or who's talking to them. You know what I mean? Who's influencing their mind. So it's like, you've seen so many people get caught up just because of that. And then they get caught off guard. You just watch Shannon Sharp give up $20 million. You know what I mean? Just because of this one thing he wanted to do.
And also lost the job.
Right. Lost the job. Facts. And stained his career.
That's why you got to own your own.
Right.
Yeah, and that's a whole nother conversation. But interesting take is we have all these shows now and they're giving women so much power. And I truly believe the melanated woman is the most powerful thing on this planet. However, a melanated woman without the melanated man is nothing. I truly believe in that and I stand on it. But we have these shows that minimize it so much, where we have the balloon popping and you have the guy and the women get to pop the balloon. You know, you got these women, they popping balloons before the man even open his mouth. And I really feel like it should be the other way around. I think the men need to be having the balloons and we need to start better vetting the people that we deal with. As a culture in whole, we have to start doing better about, like you said, choosing the right person. Yeah, that life partner will make or break everything that you do. It'll be your biggest headache, your stressor, or it'll be your stress reliever. It'll be the person that helps build you up and build a legacy, or it'll be the one that destroys everything, in your case, like with the last one. Lou, you had a situation recently. You want to speak on that, my brother?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the situation transpired also because of some financial trauma, and not being fully transparent to a certain extent. In terms of, like, as a man, we go through things and we got to be the problem solver. We got to be the provider. We got to be a father. We got to be a husband. We got to be, you know, boyfriend, or whatever the case might be. But we have to fit all these roles. And sometimes it becomes a little difficult, especially for the ones that didn't have a father figure. But some of us come from, like me personally, I come from that background where I didn't grow up with my dad. So it was more like my manhood was me going into this new apartment with the lights off and trying to figure out where the light switches is at, you know? And we didn't have that kind of guidance. A lot of us didn't have that kind of guidance. While I'm speaking for myself at this point in time. And, you know, making bad decisions and not being fully transparent with the person you're with. Like Brother Umar said, you know, the light's about to get cut off. You knew that 30 days ago, but you ain't gonna let her know till it hits the fan. And once it hits the fan, it creates this big friction between a couple, because as a provider, she looking at you like, man, we going through this. And, you know, and then it opens up the window to be like, you know, I could go on Instagram. I got a bunch of dudes in my DMs, or like, you know, I could just simply walk outside and dude in the Benz gonna come and holler at me. So why should I be going through? And that's why, you know, it's very important to pick the right person and take your time to pick the right person, because you're building a family, you're building a legacy. It is the biggest business you're going to build is with the person you're going to get married to.
Absolutely.
You know, we got these huge corporations, Johnson & Johnson, Mercedes-Benz. These are all last names.
Absolutely.
So, you know, whenever we're picking that person and we're having kids, children, you know, that's all legacy building. And we want to take the time to vet that person properly, not just go off looks, but, you know, make sure you're picking the person that's going to be there through thick and thin. Thick and
better
thin.
or worse.
Better or worse. Exactly. Because
Rich or poor.
richer. Yeah, exactly. So like,
Terribly with a good credit score.
yeah, why? You know what? Like, we were talking about that. I've been the one in a relationship with a bad credit score.
We are here.
Yeah. So, you know, as a man, I'm looking at it like, all right, how can I get through this trauma of not being able to go get a crib? Like, you know, my shorty looking at me like, yo, where the house at? Or where the car at? Or where the bank account at? And you have your work ethic, but you might not have the other things in line. And it all kind of falls together. You know, you got to overcome those negative experiences to become the best version of yourself, to get the best results out of life. That's how I look at it. And, you know,
That's deep.
each negative experience that we go through is going to be an opportunity, even though it hurts in the moment, right? Like, it's going to be an opportunity to just get yourself back up, dust yourself off, and be like, all right, how could I approach it differently? Or how could I use this experience and learn from it to become the best version of me, so that, you know, my kids could get to enjoy the best version of me. My wife could get to enjoy the best version of me. Not saying that hardship won't come, even though you're the best version of yourself, but it's always an opportunity to unlock a new level, to problem solve and get through something together, you know. But that always comes with picking the right partner, not just going off looks. So a lot nowadays, a lot of people just focus on superficial. They got to be spiritual. They got to be emotional, you know.
Emotional intelligence.
Right. And I think that that's very important when we're going into these type of situations, especially family building and legacy building, like we want to do.
Financial literacy.
Right.
Sure. You said something. You said that she's looking at you like, where's the house? And truthfully, personally, how I feel is, if you're not coming saying, how do we build a house? Because if we can't do it together, what are we even discussing? My man Dwayne told me something, I never forgot it. He said, get you a co-pilot. Yeah. And it stuck with me. It stuck with me because he acquitted my last person as to just being a passenger. I know the captain of the plane, and really she just reaping the benefits of every move that I made, and it's lose or, win, lose or draw. So you gotta deal with it, but it's different when you got a co-pilot. It's like we take a hit. When we get to our destination, we got there. And as many, we all got a little bit of ego. It's easy to just do, and you feel good about that. Like, here's the bacon. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like that, but that's old school. Now we're talking about building legacies. You can't do it alone.
Not at all. You know what I got before? You ain't what she said? She said, you a contributor, you ain't a provider. So, like, you know what I'm saying?
That's emasculating.
Right. Nah, but that's her point of view. But, like, it is an ideology of women that the man is supposed to be the one that is the one who sets the play up and gets things going, and it's the provider, because it is in a sense our role. But I think also social media distorts these things, because as a provider, man, if I'm gonna score the basketball, it gotta be a team effort. I gotta pass the ball to somebody, and that person gets to score, or vice versa. The person passed me the ball. So I think that winning in life, you can't do it alone. You gotta be able to do it as a team, and picking the right partner. Like Napoleon Hill said, picking the right partner is like 80% of your success.
Absolutely.
And most people fail because they're picking the wrong people.
Well, who's going to cover you? That's essentially what it boils down to. Who's going to cover you? I've gotten so much farther in 1 year than I did in 5 alone, because I had so much dead weight. So much dead weight. And that thing could destroy you mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But speaking to finances and relationships, I made more money in the last 5 years than I ever made in my life. And that person was there just like Ashton. The lady literally went in a bank account and transferred the money to us. And there's nothing he can do to get that back, right? There's nothing he can do to all these things that she's done. Meanwhile, he and he just got to start over, getting out of. So now his reputation, all those things. But, we have to talk about the emotional aspect of the finances, because some people will put the emotion over, and it's almost like a kamikaze. I don't get what I want, so I'm gonna destroy everything. And most of the time emotions are temporary.
Well, honey.
The change with the wind, right? You'll feel a completely different way tomorrow, but you've done this thing that's a permanent. We can't undo this thing that you've done. There was a chance they could have got back together had she just tightened up and actually, figured it out.
Well,
Now they can never go back.
there is a saying that, like, a saying I heard, it says it's cheaper to keep her. It's true.
No, it's not.
You know what I'm saying?
No,
But-
it's not.
But it says,
Yeah, I got rid of her.
Yeah.
but what I
America, it is not cheaper to keep her.
Yeah.
No.
No way to deal with that, man.
I was looking at it like in separations, there's a price you pay to separate, and that price could be financial, it could be emotional, it could be traumatic to some. You know what I'm saying?
For sure.
Yeah, but on top of that, man, you can't put a price on your peace. You could
I'll put a price on.
that's right. Ain't period. Like that's something that,
Prices.
your prices, because why would you want to be somewhere where you're unhappy?
It's guys.
Yeah.
You have guys' gifts, and essentially, when we talk about financial freedom, I heard Cat Williams say this: you want enough money to do the things that you can't buy. You just want to wake up and enjoy a sunset.
Yeah.
You want to be on your own time.
Yeah.
You want to be there for your family, your kids, spend that time with them. That's what being financially set allows you. And whatever that price, whatever that costs, put the work in and get to that point in life where you can enjoy the things that you can't buy. Peace is something that you can't buy. And if it's someone that's costing you your peace, you got to get rid of it.
Right.
There's no price that you could put on it. And let alone somebody stealing. Like, you have certain gifts from God, peace, your happiness, but the enemy comes to steal, kill, and destroy, right? It's up to you to allow it. So choosing the right partner and finances, that those things tie together directly, is essential to financial literacy. Essentials.
Yeah. And if you're going through, if you're in a relationship right now, right? Receipts only can assist you with your finances. We're not psychiatrists. We can help you with your finances, but your personal things, that's something that you're going to have to live with, right? And build on. You know what I'm saying? When you come to our events, when you sit down, you talk to Umar, you talk to me, you talk to Ashton, anyone on the panel that you speak with, everything that you're going through, we've been through. You know what I'm saying? But that same thing, the receipts only event is for your finances.
Absolutely.
And that's what we're here for, right? But we're just giving you experience of ours that we've been through as far as the drawnesses effect, how it affects the relationship, how, if you don't pick the right person, what you'll go through, as far as Ashton. You know what I mean? What Ashton thought, his partner was all up and up. This man been through, a lot of unnecessary trauma.
But catch this though, he was able to bounce back fast because of the resources of Brother Umar, because he know how to get the funding. Right? He didn't miss a beat. Yeah, she might have got away with that. She hit a lick.
Yeah.
But he right back on his feet and keep it moving.
Yeah.
Because he have the know-how, he has
knowledge and understanding of what to do.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? And he also built a
difference.
Yeah, and he also built a clientele, right? So Ashton has a unique skill set, right? That we can go and help people, right? That really don't understand that I can go get you this type of money, but after you get it, it's on you what you do with it. You understand? Right? So Ashton had that skill set. So when he came, went through his ordeal, Ashton knows what to do. He knows it's going to take a minute, right? Because of how everything went down, but he came through and look at it. It's flossing now.
But me thinking in the sense of like clients that come to our events, what you're seeing is life experiences. And I want to deal with somebody who's had those type of life experiences rather than just theoretically be telling me some game and not being gone through it. Not saying that, you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm happy Ashton went through that, but I am happy that he's able to overcome that for himself and then show other people how to do it.
What we're speaking to is the receipts.
Yeah, 100.
Receipts only is the name of the product. Receipts only is the brand. And what you're seeing firsthand is the receipts of Ashton, the receipts of myself, the receipts of Brother Lou, the receipts of Dwayne, the receipts of Brother Umar, and not only those personal experiences, but what these brothers have been able to do for so many others and to help them in their situations so that they can provide for their families, so that they can live their best lives and do what it is that they desire to do, which does make a difference.
Yeah, it definitely does. It definitely does. But I'd say this, that experience, the experience that we all went through, right? If you don't change it, you going to get the same thing back to you again. So with me, like the experiences I go through, I use it. It's now at the time, emotionally, you might be upset, like, man, fuck this bitch, whatever. Right. But you have to use it as a learning. Like I have to learn from this, right? And build myself from this, right? Because if you don't have, bro, I think on my page, it's, on my page, my page on my Facebook is, you have to learn to deal with, regrets, right? You have to, man. And when you go through things that emotionally, cause that's emotionally for us as men, sometimes we might show it, but right when we can't provide, we can't be the men who we want to be. It takes, and now you're going to drink and you're going to drugging. You know what I'm saying? Because you don't understand how to get out of that mist. You know what I mean? So when you have brothers like you are, right? I can call you. Hey, man. You know what I mean? Hey, listen, I'm going through this, man. And y'all going to keep it 100. And so it's good to have a nice community of people that can assist you when you go through it. But if you have that support system and you don't use it, it's your fault.
That's real, my brother.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. But one thing you get when you come to Receipts Only is you get the sense of that community. And we have a community for those who are interested in joining. And you get the sense of community. So not only are you getting those different expertise, but you definitely are joining a community of other like-minded people. Like you seeing what the next person did with their funding once they got to that point, and how you can get, the game here, the game there. With that, this is Receipts Only. Thank you for joining us, and we'll catch you next time.
Peace.
Peace.
Peace.